Hey Pete, you might be on mute if speaking, Pete. Hi everyone, we're going to give this a couple more minutes to allow a few more folks to trickle in. Thank you all for joining, and we're excited to do this. Folks, I know that there's a lot going on right now in the world of tariffs, and we had a ton of interest for this webinar. So please feel free to start actually populating Q&A. And Tyler, who will be joining us as a moderator to help kind of facilitate this, will be hopping on shortly, and he will go through some of the Q&A questions. Let's give it a few more minutes just while people trickle in. We'll start in just a quick second here. And we're just waiting for Tyler, who is going to be my co-host, and then we'll go ahead and kick things off. Awesome. Hey, Tyler.
Hey Prince, how you doing?
Good, good. Well,
Good. Forgive my tardiness. It is a busy day in a lot of ways, everybody. So thanks everybody for attending. Great attendance again today. For those of you who are joining for the first time, we at Pietra are recognizing that this is a very important topic across so many industries right now. So we've been running daily webinars to keep you all updated on the day's news about tariffs. We have an expert on hand, Prince Gosh, CEO of Factored Quality, here to walk us through a high-level conversation about tariffs, the updates of the day, and we'll do a little bit of a deep dive as well. We have had such great engagement here and would encourage folks to participate in the Q&A. We'll try to answer all those questions live. And with that, I will hand it off to you, Prince, to give our updates today.
amazing. And we'll have Ro joining on in just a second as well, Tyler. Tyler, would you be able to screen share the slides? Tyler, let me know if you're able to screen share the slides.
No problem. One second here.
No worries. All right, and welcome, Ro.
Hello, sorry I was a few minutes late.
No
Getting
worries.
some
We're just kicking off here.
amazing.
While Tyler pulls up the slides, I can actually answer one question from anonymous attendee. Is there a link to a recording of yesterday's webinar? The answer is yes. We do have daily recordings of the webinars. Tyler can disperse those around to everyone after this. We are running one of these at 4 p.m. Every single day, folks. So tune in and let your friends who are also trying to navigate this insane world we're living in know if they want to tune in as well. All
Thanks.
righty. Wonderful. Tyler, wanna kick things off and maybe just give Ro a quick introduction, and then Ro want to give a brief background on Pietra.
Definitely. Ro, thanks for joining. Everybody, I mentioned I'm Tyler, one of the CX creator experience, customer experience leads here at Pietra. We have Prince Goshan, CEO of Factored Quality, and Ro just joined. Ro is Pietra's CEO, here to provide additional expertise, some tips and tricks as far as using the Pietra ecosystem to take advantage of all these new opportunities that the news of the day is presenting us. So, Ro, thanks for joining. You want to give a quick overview on Pietra, and then we can hand it back over to Prince.
Yeah, totally. So thank you everyone for joining. I know we're doing these every day, so it gets a little bit more exciting with each day. But we're going to spend a bulk of the time today talking about tariffs and how you can you can navigate these times. But for those that are new or not in Pietra's family, just a reminder that Pietra is an e-commerce platform, and what we do is we build software and services to help you run your businesses more efficiently. And so we provide software and services to people that need help with manufacturing and sourcing, which a huge part of this webinar is gonna be about. But then we also provide services like fulfillment and marketing tools as well. So for those, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. I don't want to take too much time selling. But if you haven't checked it out, if you're not yet in the Pietra family or you're not a member, check it out. You get a whole host of services that comes with your membership to help you run your business, including experts to access to experts like Prince, etc.
Awesome. Why don't we go ahead and dive in, Tyler? Want to move to the next slide? All right. Well, welcome, folks. Again, like I mentioned, we're doing one of these every day at 4 p.m. as the news cycles evolve. And we have a particularly exciting news cycle today. So, for those who have been following along, the biggest change in the recent news with tariffs is, as of earlier today, the Trump administration announced a 90-day pause on tariffs from countries apart from China. So countries like Canada, Mexico, a lot of the countries in Europe, in Latin America that previously would have been subject to the new set of what were called reciprocal tariffs, which we'll get into, what exactly those are, that were going into effect as of this morning today. Those countries will no longer have a new import tariff into effect for the next 90 days. That said, one very specific nuance is there were two sets of tariffs that the Trump administration placed. The first was a 10% baseline tariff that started on April 5th, and we'll get into some of the dates and timelines in the upcoming slide. And there was supposed to be a second tariff, a much higher 50 to 80% tariff that was going to be stacked on top of that for today, April 9th. And the Trump administration just 2 hours ago basically said to the world that they're going to hold off for 90 days on doing that. Whether or not this is part of a long-term strategy, whether or not this is part of a negotiation, is a developing discussion, something that's that no one really has full insight into. But our goal here with these webinars is to try and synthesize all the information, the rumors, the facts floating around the internet, and bring them into one place for you folks to be able to simply run your businesses. The one thing to note as far as new updates go is while there was a pause on that, while there was a 90-day pause on those tariffs coming in from countries apart from China, the Trump administration has continued to be deeply aggressive in trade relations with China. So China reciprocal tariff rates have actually now increased to 125%. And I was actually pulling this number. It might not have shown, but the reciprocal rates for China imports into the US, and sorry, Tyler, we might just need to add that number in there. I believe are up now to 50% plus. So this is for goods being exported out of the US and into China. So we're very much in the middle of a trade war. Folks will update that number as it's evolving in real time, and then send that out. But just best to be aware of what's going on. And the one last piece that's particularly relevant for a lot of e-commerce sellers, who I assume many of you folks are, who are tuning in here, is steel and aluminum will continue to stay exempt from import tariff guidelines. And the reason I bring this up is just this morning, we were on a call with a well-known importer of cookware. And a really important thing to note is cookware as a product example is comprised of steel and aluminum, which is not subject to these import tariffs. So many of you folks building products, if there is a steel or aluminum component in it, just remember that that continues to stay tariff exempt. But this is what's latest and greatest as of the past couple of hours from the Trump administration.
Thanks, Prince. And a great question here from Michelle about country by country breakdown, Southeast Asian countries such as Vietnam. Are those also exempt? Is the 10% flat tariff that was introduced during Liberation Day also paused? Do you have any additional color on that?
Correct. So the 10% tariff is in play for all countries, and then China continues to have the stacked tariff on top of that. That is our latest knowledge and our latest understanding. The Every country except China, so out of the long list that was originally provided on Liberation Day, all of those countries except for China, which was exclusively singled out, are in safe territory for, again, the next 90 days for that additional stacked tariff, but that 10% is in place.
Great. And then a question about the steel exemption. If you have that detail, does steel include stainless steel base material for jewelry?
Yeah, great question. So if steel is in the composition of the product, and actually one thing that we should always start out with saying, and we need to do a better job of, is anything said on this call, folks, is not meant to be financial or legal advice. The only people that should be able to give you folks financial and legal advice on duties and tariffs are licensed customs brokers. We can chat a bit more about who they are. We will actually have a licensed customs broker on tomorrow's webinar along with us, a friend of the company. So please do join back in and tune in for someone who actually can give legal and financial advice. We within Pietra have a network of licensed customs broker partners that we are more than happy to introduce you to, or your factory should have them yourselves. So I'll start with that baseline. But typically, no. So in the case of steel inside of stainless steel jewelry is typically classified under a different HTS code. So what a licensed customs broker does is they tell you how is your product classified. And I think it's classified under imitation jewelry is what I've seen in the past. And so this would be grouped under imitation jewelry and be subject to whatever the duties and tariffs for imitation jewelry right now. The steel that is typically exempt is when it is a pure steel product. Let's say, for example, you're importing steel ore or steel or aluminum pans or something like that. That is what the exemption would be. But again, a lot of this comes down to the nuances of how these products are assembled and put together. So please speak to a customs broker about that.
Great. Thanks, Prince. And just noticing a couple of really important terms you're touching on there, HTS codes. I'm seeing some really great questions about timing. And I'll just put a plug in for folks to, in addition to attending the live webinars, please review the recordings. We go over a lot of these topics in further detail, and there are articles published in our help center as well if you need a little bit of a reminder.
Awesome. And Tyler, why don't we actually flip over to the next slide that starts to go into the next few slides, which go into some of the details about these different pieces.
Yeah. Am I on the
Awesome.
right slide now? Yeah.
So we are. So again, folks, and now actually this will be a little bit out of date and changing. We actually made these slides this morning right before we heard the
Mhm.
news changed. So there was a 10% baseline tariff in place for all countries. And then these were the potential reciprocal tariffs in place. You can look at all these numbers, and for the next 90 days, you can assume that they will be zero. But these numbers still hold as of right now for after 90 days. So 91 days from now, whatever that is, this is the current administration's guidance on what the reciprocal tariff rates will be for all of these different countries. Tyler, if you can actually go to the next slide. Awesome. What we can chat a little bit about here, folks, is how these tariffs work and just like the baseline so everyone has a straightforward understanding of how duties and tariffs are done. So at its core, the most important thing for everyone to remember is a duty or a tariff is purely a import tax on the good, okay? So the way that you would pay any sort of historical duty or tax, tariffs are a lever used by the government to control trade deficits and surpluses between two countries. And so, what the Trump administration is saying is we are going to make it intentionally a little bit more expensive to import products from certain countries across the world. As Tyler mentioned, on April 5th last week, there was a 10% baseline tariff imposed on all countries. Okay, so that continues to stay in effect. On April 9th, today, there was an additional reciprocal tariff. This is what is temporarily paused as of the last 90 minutes, the last 2 hours. This is paused for 90 days, but will come back like what we were saying before. For everyone's kind of baseline knowledge, the way tariffs are calculated are based on something called an HTS code. So every product in the world is bucketed and can be bucketed and categorized into a HTS, which is to say, this is how international trade defines this product to be classified. So a candle has its own HTS code. Stainless steel jewelry has its own HTS code. Pots and pans have their own HTS codes. And one of the things that we have continuously kind of said here is it's super important for everyone to have a great licensed customs broker, either that you can work with directly or that your factory is working with if they're taking care of your shipments, because there's so many nuances in how products are categorized and how those duties are stacked one on top of another. So, for example, if you're importing a stainless steel water bottle, you will have a few layers of general import duties. You will have new import duties, which are the IEEPA import duties from China. There are Section 232 specific duties on steel as a product if this is a stainless steel water bottle. But because steel is exempt from this new additional tariff in place, you do not have to pay that additional 34%, which would have been in place otherwise. So these are some of the kind of nuances behind this. Again, we have tomorrow in our webinar, we will have a licensed customs broker on with us. So it should be a great place for everyone to ask questions. So please do tune back in then. Awesome. Tyler, Rowe, any questions we want to answer just as we're getting started?
Yeah, we can. You want me to take one, or Tyler, you want to go for it? You want to take one? Go for it.
Tons of engagement here. We have a very easy one here. Does Pietra have domestic sourcing and manufacturing resources? We are global. We definitely have domestic suppliers available to you. If you're transitioning from a supplier abroad and looking for a domestic supplier, don't hesitate to reach out to our customer support team. We'll be happy to point you in the right direction there. And then another question about components of products made in China and the product assembled in the US. Is there a way to bypass some of the tariffs on products coming from China? I like where your head is at. That said, tariffs will apply to components to be assembled in the United States, regardless of whether the final product is being imported. And this can also apply if you are potentially having raw materials or components from China sent to another country for final assembly and then passed along to the United States. Tariffs will still likely apply. As always, and you're going to hear this topic come up quite a bit, it is best to check with a licensed customs broker for final confirmation on what the tariffs on your product are going to be.
Awesome. And Tyler, one thing that I think we would be remiss to not mention here, folks, is while we know this is a very painful time period and there's a lot of confusion for many companies and importers, please do not try and game the system. Tariffs and import duties are law. They're a very serious thing. Misclassifications, misfilings, not paying duties and tariffs can result in severe punishments and penalties. So please, please abide by the law. Speak to a licensed customs broker who can help you optimize, but do not try and take quick hacks around this. And I'll lighten the mood a little bit. I believe I read that Customs and Border Protection offers any whistleblowers who report customs fraud 10% of any of the money recovered. And so I'll just leave that out there without without going too into depth there. But please, please speak to a licensed customs broker and make sure that your products are accurately classified. Awesome. Tyler, any other questions we want to address here?
Let's see. Question about what HTS code do cosmetics fall under? Maybe we can suggest the best way to look up your HTS code if you're not sure, if you are aware of your product category, but you're not quite sure
Yeah,
of
we'll actually
the
go.
category itself.
Great question. We'll actually go one step further. We're actually going to be putting out a lightweight tool that will send out in a follow-up email, folks. That'll be kind of a light AI powered HTS classification tool, helping brands just understand what is their general HTS code. Again, this is not legal advice. We are not a licensed customs broker. You should use this as guidance, but confirm with a licensed customs broker. But we'll send that tool out afterwards as well. It's something that our product and engineering team has been spinning up underneath the hood. Awesome.
Totally. So I got okay. Oh, I was gonna jump in, but keep going. We'll batch these. We got a few more left, Tyler. You can go for it.
Okay, wonderful. Why don't we go through a few more slides, folks, and then we'll batch a bunch of the Q&A together at the end. So Tyler, next slide. Awesome, guys. So one of the big questions that we often get from folks is how are tariffs paid? When are they paid? So again, just a couple of key terms here, right? The tariff is paid by whoever is legally the importer of record. Sometimes that is you as the merchant, assuming that most of you folks on the call here are the buyers of the goods. Sometimes the seller of the goods is the importer of record. The thing that designates whether or not it's the buyer or the seller as the importer of goods is defined by what is called a Incoterm. An Incoterm is an international commercial term. It's basically a designation of whose responsibility is it to move the products and then pay the duties and taxes associated with the products. And then when does title of the goods transferred from one person to the next? So more on this will be in our appendix. We'll go through some of the lightweight Incoterms. In most cases, if you're a smaller e-commerce merchant, your factory will most likely be taking care of paying for the duties and tariffs as they take care of also shipping the product for you. And what you will typically receive is a commercial invoice from your factory that says, hey, we have made your candles. This is how much each candle is, $5. It costs $2 to ship the candles. And then here's 50 cents, which is the duties and tariffs paid for the candles. So you ultimately will need to pay for it, but you just pay your factory who's taking care of everything for you. And that's how most e-commerce merchants work. On occasion, you may be working with a freight forwarder to move the shipments yourself. In those cases, your freight forwarder will help advise you when are you responsible to pay for the duties and of the tariffs and the tariffs. If you don't have a good freight forwarder, reach out to us, let us know. We have a phenomenal freight partner underneath the hood that will help move your inventory from point A to point B. So we can definitely help out there. And then again, like we've said a couple of different times here, tariffs are based on what your product is classified by, what country you're exporting your products from, what country you're importing your products into, and that trade agreement between those two countries. And the value of the goods is also a key factor that goes into play here. And again, licensed customs brokers are the individuals who help people determine what is the classification of my goods and then how much in duties and tariffs do I owe. Many freight companies, including ours that we partner with, have licensed customs brokers underneath the hood. Or if your factory is taking care of shipping, that means they're also working with a licensed customs broker.
And
Awesome.
this is probably a good time to remind everyone before you jump in. So for the people that do have their Pietra memberships and are in the platform, you do also have access to a third party transportation provider who will be able to guide you through kind of these challenges. If you go into the fulfillment tab and there's a big button that's called Book Freight, that's going to connect you directly to a transportation provider who doesn't work with the factories, and so they're not in bed with the factories. They also are not in your company, obviously. So you'll get a very objective view on how to move things around the world from point A to point B and navigate these types of issues. So if you have any questions, of course you can reach out to Pietra. But if you want to go right to someone that's licensed or professional, you get that as part of your membership, and you could find that in the fulfillment hub of the Pietra portal.
So wonderful. Why don't we keep going through a few more slides, and then we'll make sure we leave a lot of time at the end, folks, for Q&A, because I know there's a bunch of questions. Just breezing through this, we have put together a quick little slide here, sharing when and who's responsible for tariffs for most forms of shipment. So ultimately, when you are shipping and importing product into the US from internationally, there's one of three ways in which you can do it. You can either import the product as a parcel. Okay. So a parcel is an individual package. Think what you receive from Amazon in the mail. Or if you are a slightly larger brand or an importer, probably doing 500,000 in revenue to about a million in revenue, just general rule of thumb, you are big enough to start importing pallets. And when you import pallets of goods, you can load those into a container and you ship in what's called LCL, which is less than a container load. You share a container with other folks importing products at the same time. And then if you are starting to creep into that mid-market territory, if you're a brand that does typically above a million in revenue, and then this scales all the way up to the Nikes and the Apples of the world, you are shipping full container loads of goods. So entire containers, shipping containers, 40-foot containers are stocked with your product. I'll share a funny kind of thing that I saw with the broader audience here. Just using Apple as an example, I believe Apple, I don't know if everyone saw this news, loaded up 5 planes worth of iPhones yesterday to try and get them out of China in time before the tariffs were set to go into place earlier this morning. So if anyone else has access to a 747, let us know. I'm sure we would have a lot of merchants that would love to get their goods out of Asia and into the US in time. Awesome. So we'll send the slide out. Don't need to go too into depth on this, but this is a good reference just for everyone to have as they think about who's paying for the tariffs and these duties and when they're being paid for. Awesome. Tyler, next slide. Cool. I saw a couple of questions pop up in the chat here, so I wanted to make sure that we address this, folks. So one of the other big changes that the Trump administration put into effect and announced on Liberation Day was that de minimis, which is the import trade loophole that many importers were following historically, that allowed them to import product and parcels that were underneath $800 and not pay an import tax on it. The announcement was that that loophole would soon be going away. And so, as of right now, for the latest news that we have, those changes are still taking effect. That change is taking effect on May 2nd. This is completely separate from kind of the core tariffs piece. Historically, the small value, lower than $800 parcels that were shipped individually into the US were not subject to duties or tariffs. The Trump administration will now start imposing a duty and tariff onto these products. You can assume for right now it'll be at the same duty and tariff rates as standard inventory from those other countries. So there's about 22, 23 more days before this goes into effect for China and Hong Kong, which will be the first couple of countries that are subject to this. Other countries have not yet been stated that they will be subject to this. In large part, this is because the administration needs to put software systems in place, accounting systems in place to make sure that the US Customs and Border Protection can actually properly account for all of these e-commerce parcels. De minimis, as everyone may know, is famously what enables companies like Shein and Temu to import products without paying many import duties and tariffs on it. Very commonly used by drop shippers, e-commerce sellers, and merchants and things like that. So just something else to keep an eye out for over coming weeks and to plan for accordingly.
Thanks, Prince. And just want to make sure we answer Nikki's question as directly as possible, which was, since de minimis is still here until May 2nd, do tariffs still apply before then? Should our audience think of de minimis and tariffs as two independent variables here?
Great question. So let me be super clear here. So de minimis and tariffs prior to May 2nd can be thought of as separate sort of things where because de minimis is in effect until May 2nd, that is the overall blanket protection you have for a good or a product underneath $800 in value. So if you are shipping via e-commerce parcel, and if you're working with DHL or UPS or one of the major carriers, you will specifically work with the e-commerce parcel division of that company, which will help you ship de minimis. You will not be subject to goods before May 2nd for that. After May 2nd, de minimis goes away, and then those goods are subject to whatever is the standard duty or tariff on the import at that point in time. May 2nd, when it would dependent on what the Trump administration will decide it will be.
Great, thanks. Shall we move on?
Let's do it. We just have one or two more slides here. And to kind of round out the presentation part of this, folks, before we go into deep Q&A, the biggest question we get from people is what can we do to try and prepare? And what can we do to try and navigate this ever-changing world? So the first thing is, and this is particularly pertinent now that there's temporarily, at least for the next 90 days, a an exemption for these non-Chinese countries for the new stack tariffs. There are a lot of factories in countries and nations and geographies across the world, across Europe, across Mexico, that are actively trying to be an alternative to Chinese production. And we at Pietra have a entire mountain of these factories that are eager and ready to work with folks. And we continue to try and seek to be a resource for folks as they're looking to resource large parts of their supply chain. So just please continue to reach out to us if we can help there. A lot of these factories in these other countries and geographies are actively dropping their MOQ or minimum order quantity, making it easier for small businesses like many of you folks who are listening to be able to work with them without having to do 100,000 unit buys or something absolutely insane. So that's kind of the first order of business. That said, fundamentally, manufacturing is a supply and demand equation. And if you can find a new factory to work with, or if you want to continue to work with your existing Chinese factories, the best way to try and overcome some amount of the increased costs is to be really clear and transparent with your factories about what's going on and to try and give them forecasts as much as you can. Because if you can say to your factory, hey guys, look, I know that we're about to get hit with tariffs, but I know that I have a ton of demand for my product and I can place a larger order or I have steady state demand and I'm going to continue to place those orders with you guys. Many factories in return for that predictability and lock-in will give you lower cost per unit. So we'll help decrease those unit economic costs and help improve your margins a little bit. So that's kind of the second big piece of advice. And the last piece is, again, these factories are businesses, right? And they want to try and thrive and survive. We are fortunate here at Pietra to have a number of our teammates who are boots on the ground across Asia between China, Hong Kong, and other countries. And we were just having a team discussion last evening. The mood is somber for a lot of these factories overseas as well. In the same way that a lot of e-commerce merchants and importers are nervous, a lot of these factories are equally as nervous. So have these conversations with your guys' suppliers, message them through the Pietra platform, and reach out to us if we can help facilitate or support any of those conversations. And what you'll often find is the factories are willing to negotiate on cost in exchange for continuity of business. So those are kind of our three big suggestions, recommendations, or takeaways. It's an uncertain time, but there's definitely ways to weather and navigate this. So thanks, folks, for listening. And now why don't we hop into a little bit deeper Q&A, Tyler, if we want to stop the screen share.
Perfect. Lots of Q&A here. Let's start with a maybe fast follow on the tactical recommendations from Lorenzo. Um, Lorenzo asks, if you had an import incoming, would you try to rush an import ASAP or wait for things to settle down a bit?
Great question. I think the answer is it depends on where the import is coming in from. If it's from China, we pretty much know the steady state right now is that there will probably be a sustained trade war between China and the US for a while. What we are seeing is that this reciprocal tariff, the stacked tariff number, is going up day by day. So the way that we would probably say this without getting into deep financial advice, again, do what is right for your business is right now there's a 90-day window if you're manufacturing for a country outside of China to get inventory ordered and into the US before these reciprocal tariffs hit. If you have the balance sheet to be able to make a larger inventory buy and purchase, I think it would make sense to do it. If you're manufacturing in China, it probably also does make sense before tariffs potentially go up even more. That said, the big asterisk is tomorrow the administration could wake up and decide, hey, we're done with this dogfight and we're going to drop tariffs again. So that is the general perspective that we can suggest and give, but it's all dependent on how much cash you guys have on your balance sheet right now.
Great.
Oh, here we go. I got to go on from Marlies Lopez. Given that we engage directly with the manufacturer through the platform, what's the best way to engage with a licensed custom broker since the manufacturer is the one handling the shipping and Incoterms? So this is a great question because I want to remind everyone, as a when you connect with a factory, you are in control and you get to work with the factory and ask them these questions. So there's two things that I'll say to answer the question directly. You can always engage directly with a third-party transportation provider. So on Pietra, if you go to the fulfillment hub, when you click the button that says book freight, it's going to connect you to a logistics provider that doesn't work for your factory and doesn't work for your business. And their job and their profession is to move stuff around from point A to point B through different countries. Okay. And what they will do is they'll be able to advise you on different sets of Incoterms or shipping methods. There's air shipping, there's ocean shipping, and so a little bit on Incoterms, as Prince mentioned, is, these are international commercial terms. So who's paying for the shipping? Who's getting it to the dock? Who's making sure that when it gets to the customs in the US that it's, getting cleared and paid for? These are all things that you can negotiate with your factory. Don't be fearful of asking these questions up front. Normally, what happens is you will just get a bill, like your invoice will include a shipping charge, and usually the factories will go cover that shipping charge if you don't say anything, and they'll bill you for it. But sometimes they're making a little bit of money on that shipping term, sometimes they're not. You never know. So you can always consult a third-party professional through Pietra, and you can go while you're talking to that factory, say, "Hey, I would love these terms," or "This is how I'd like to handle shipping," and they should be able to work with you on that.
Awesome. Couple of questions here, Prince, about when exactly tariffs will apply. I'm going to combine a question from Jessica Lynn and Jeff. So Jessica Lynn asks, for example, if purchase was made before tariffs kicked off, for example, on March 24th, um, are tariffs going to apply? And if um, she's asked to pay tariffs when they shouldn't apply, how should she proceed? And then Jeff also asks, if I have goods on ships headed to the US, are these goods subject to tariffs once they arrive? Does it matter when the shipment was booked?
Yeah, great question. So we can maybe start with how and when are the specifics of tariffs applied. So the high level folks is tariffs are determined and duties are determined based on when the goods were loaded onto a container to start being imported. And then ultimately, when did they arrive? So the way that the law is written is the goods must be on their final mode of transportation to the country of import. So if you are shipping inventory on ocean container into the US, it would be when were the goods loaded onto a container. So let's say, for example, duties were set to go into effect at midnight or 12:01 tonight, as long as the goods were loaded onto the ocean container prior to midnight, you would not need to pay duties that were starting to go into effect tomorrow. One of the things that's worth mentioning is whenever you have inventory that's moving, depending on who is taking care of shipping, you or a freight forwarder or your factory, there will be something called a bill of lading involved, which is a statement or declaration of when the goods were loaded onto the mode of transport. Please, 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 folks, keep those records of your bills of lading for yourself or ask your freight forwarder. If you use someone like Flexport, they will automatically keep track of that for you, or ask your factories to keep track of those documents and send them to you. The reason is because if there is an incorrect duty or tariff applied to your goods, you can audit your bill of lading and you can file that to customs to try and win back some money. And there's a lot going on right now, so I'm sure there will be some mistakes that happen. Again, if you have a good licensed customs broker, they take care of all of this for you. So that's the high level of how tariffs are actually put into place. Tyler, did I answer the
Right.
second part of the question? There was, I think, something about March 24th or something that was asked.
Well, I think you did. Maybe not specifically to March 24th, but you mentioned auditing the BOL, bill of lading. If you think there is an inaccuracy, if you could maybe remind the person who asked this question where they might reach out if they had a dispute or questions about their BOL.
Yeah, great question. So your bills of lading, which are a PDF document, right? Think of it as a title to the inventory, the way that you would have a title to a car or a title to the house, to your house. That bill of lading for every piece of inventory is generated and is legally required to be stored by whoever is responsible for moving those goods. So that could be you, that could be your freight forwarding partner, who is the shipping and logistics partner like Ro mentioned, one of whom we have as a part of the Pietra network, or your factories may be taking care of this for you and they may have their own shipping partners. So, regardless, a bill of lading exists somewhere out there which says, hey, my inventory, these candles were loaded onto a container at this date, this time. So, what I am recommending is everyone just make sure they please, please keep track of those bills of lading.
Great. And great question, Jessica Lynn. We have time for just a couple more. Question from Dana, really about approaching negotiations on a low margin product, for example, garments. Are any factories actually prepared to absorb these costs? It seems unlikely given their margins in any country. No one is sitting on those kind of margins. Any tips, tricks, suggestions for Dana and anybody else with that question?
I
Yeah. Go ahead, Ro.
yeah, I can go and you
Please.
can talk about it. I think that what I've talked to a couple of brand owners, and I think it's important to have an open and honest conversation with your factory. I think in manufacturing, in e-commerce, and all these industries, everyone's always saying that there's tight margins, and I think that's fair. But something that we talked about a couple of days ago, and it's important to have this conversation with your factories, is they want you as customers, just like they need you to stay in business as well to have you as customers, right? And so they also don't want you to go out of business and never order from them again. So if there's ever a time to have those open and honest conversations about like, look, we might need to split something, or we might need better terms, or this is the time to negotiate. Just remember that American brand owners aren't sitting there with no leverage whatsoever. They also need to continue to exist, and business needs to be done for both parties to make money. And so definitely have that conversation openly and honestly. And then remember, you have the ability to diversify your supply chain. You've probably heard about this on blogs and people have talked about it a lot, which is, not putting all your eggs in one basket. And this is the time to, jump into Pietra or go find another factory in another part of the world and start sampling and making sure that, everything is not getting produced from one place at one time, just in case things get, worse. Um, so those would be my two things to Dana.
Awesome. Tyler, anything else? Any last couple of questions that we want to take?
Let's see. With the last minute here, a really good question about de minimis. Can I send my parcels in batches to take advantage of de minimis? And I'll just add, this is probably the last question we're going to get to. Every question that's being asked, we're capturing here, and those will be added to the FAQ page on our website. So if you didn't quite capture the answer line, don't hesitate to check us out on the Help Center.
Awesome. Yeah. The answer is you can. The trade-off is you will have to pay for more shipping. So that basically, if you have parcels that are valued over, $800 a piece, right? Let's say you have one parcel that's valued at $1,600 and you want to split it up into two, you now can avoid duties and tariffs on each of the individual parcels, but you have to pay 2x as much shipping fees. So ultimately, there's no one size fits all solution for how to best optimize your supply chain. It's really just dependent on on your cash in your bank, what it is that you're looking to optimize for. Is it speed of receiving your goods? Is it avoiding duties? Is it avoiding tariffs? What is the relationship you have with shipping logistics providers? So there's a bunch of different variables in the equation, but we are here to help folks. We have a team of experts ranging from folks who have deep specialization in product development and manufacturing. We have teams here at Pietra that are boots on the ground physically in China, in Hong Kong, in Vietnam, in many of these countries across the world. And above all, we have a network of thousands at this point, tens of close to hundreds of thousands of factories across the world that are listed on Pietra, and we are working as hard as we can to add more and more of these factories onto our lists and into our networks every single day, so that we can help you guys through this moment of tumultuousness. So thanks so much for coming on. Ro, Tyler, any last words to close things out?
Nope, just thanks again for a really engaged audience. And for anybody who wants to follow up with us, if you do have a Pietra subscription, we're very active on the Creator Help Center chat. We have live agents here to help you. And also, if you are interested in joining Pietra, not a member yet, just reach out to creators@pietrastudio.com. We'll be happy to get you set up and get all of your questions answered. Thanks,
Let's
everyone.
go. Laura also asked, where can I find the FAQ, Tyler?
Oh, nice.
Really quick.
Help.pietrastudio.com.
There you go.
Help.pietrastudio.com.
Awesome.
Love that.
And last two things, Jason, I think you were here the other day as well. We will reach out to you, and if you're already a Pietra member, send us a ping in the intercom, and we can address this question directly. And we'll figure out some time to chat through this. For everyone else, as one last note, again, we're doing a webinar tomorrow again with a licensed customs broker. So please come, please bring your questions. I'm sure there will be more evolutions between today and tomorrow. So excited to see everyone again and keep this conversation going.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.